Good afternoon. I'm Tennie McCarty. I am the founder and one of the owners of Shades of Hope Treatment Center in Buffalo Gap, Texas. Shades of Hope is an all-addiction treatment center with a primary focus on eating disorders and codependency. We work with people from all addictions, and we do family weeks while the client is in treatment. We also do intensives, and then we also do couples weekends. And that's really what I want to talk about today is relationships. We have different types of relationships with our children, our parents, our friends. But today I want to talk about love relationships, relationships and coupleships. And, there's different stages of healthy, or not necessarily healthy, but there's different stages of the coupleship. And so I want to go through those stages, and throughout the stages I might give some personal reference, because I could certainly write a book on my relationship with my husband, on things to do and not to do. I was my husband's third wife. We both brought baggage into the marriage that we had not worked on. He was my second husband, and I was 19, he was 32, and we started out with a house full of kids and had 3 daughters of our own. So we raised 7 children together, and a lot of hell. He was a practicing alcoholic, which I didn't know at the time we married, and I was a compulsive overeater, which he didn't know at the time, because he met me when I had lost weight, and I was pretty cute back then. But I immediately started gaining the weight back, and ate myself up to 287. So we had a hard marriage throughout the first part of our marriage, and but I do want to say, I want to get us both in recovery before I start talking. He passed away 6 years ago, and he had 32 years of sobriety, and we were married for 51 years, and I'm getting ready to celebrate 35 years of recovery from my eating disorder. So I wanted to put that in, that, what's ideal is before couples come together, that they are 2 healthy people. And a healthy person is someone that can stand tall, autonomous, that they don't have to be with someone, but they want to be with someone. God made us to live in relationships and in community with each other. But sometimes people come together out of their sickness. Sickness seeks its own level, but health seeks its own level. And so we got very sick together, but by the grace of God, we both found recovery, both went to treatment, and we got in recovery. And when we did that, that's when our relationship, or I realized particularly, that we really didn't have that much of a relationship. Yes, we were married and had children, and but the relationship takes work. That's a different, the relationship is a third entity that you have to step into. So I want to talk about the stages of a relationship and what the different stages that most people go through. And I might give you some personal examples along the way. But the first stage is that infatuation. That's when you meet someone and they meet you, and you it doesn't necessarily have to be love at first sight. It means there's a connection at first sight. You connect, and that there is something that draws you to each other. And so that infatuation actually can last clear through the wedding. That's where you have stars in your eyes, flutter in your stomach, it feels like butterflies. It's where you want to spend every waking moment together, and where you really do love each other, and whether it's love or lust, whatever, you want to be together because you just love each other. And so let's say that the couple maybe dates for a while, and there may be some bumps in the road, but when you're in this infatuation stage, you get over those bumps really quick. But after the wedding, what happens then, you go from the infatuation stage to the second stage. It's called disillusionment. And what disillusionment is, it's like you realize that, your partner might have a few little flaws that get on your nerves, and sometimes you might have one nerve left and they get on it. And it can be small things or big things, but small things can be, how they squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube, squeeze it out of the middle, and you might be the neat freak that rolls it up. Or how they put toilet tissue on the roll, put it on backwards for you, and it just doesn't work. And so you begin to look at each other's faults, and they sometimes can be big faults. And you begin it kind of creeps into the coupleship. And so you're no longer just have that, real infatuation, you're both having to make a living, or, if one's at home keeping the home fires burning, the other one's making a living, and life a lot of times gets in between. And this is where also that things can begin to get between the couple, and that will take energy out of the coupleship. And some of those things are, like I mentioned, addiction. Addiction can take energy out of the coupleship in a heartbeat, or mental illness, physical illness, affairs. I mean, that's a biggie, going outside the marriage. And then children can drain the energy out of the coupleship. And so it's anything that gets your attention and gets the attention out of the marriage and off the focus of the coupleship. But if a couple will make a commitment to their coupleship, that there's going to not be an exit, as far as if there will be no murder, suicide, or there will not be a divorce. And when you have that, what you're saying is, we're going to stay together and work through the hard stuff. And so when that happens, then you go to the next phase. It's called conflict and crisis, where I said you might be having crisis, and you get into a place that can break or make the relationship. Like I said, maybe an affair, something big time. And what happens here, many people will, when the going gets tough, they get to go, and this is when your divorces start taking place. And I believe if people can stay together and work through their differences, what I say is, stay with the one that brought you to the party and learn how to dance until you get that dance down. And and what I mean is, learn about yourself from that other person and change yourself. You cannot change them, but you can change yourself. And as you begin to see your part in the situation, then you have a choice. You have a choice whether to stay and set a boundary and love that person anyway, or you'll have a choice to leave. Now, the ideal thing is where both members of that coupleship is doing the same thing. They're pulling off and taking a stand for themselves and looking at themselves and getting healing on both sides. And that's what happened to my husband and I. I went to years in recovery. I went to treatment for my eating disorder and got in good recovery, and actually went into the addiction field. The same thing, my husband quit drinking, treated his alcoholism, and became sober around the drug alcohol. And so we both began to get healthy, separate, in our own healing. And that's what's important in a coupleship. Otherwise, if you can't stand tall and autonomous with the God of your understanding, you're going into a relationship to get something, because you're saying you're not complete within yourself. So you have to go in there and get something. So both parties are going in there to get something, and they wind up feeling like they're not getting anything. So the key to it is individual help, individual where you can stand alone, autonomous, and before, the relationship will look like dependency, like this, where you're leaning on each other. But if one pulls out and goes for help, this one will either bring this one back over here, because this is the status quo. That's what they're used to, is being sick together. And if this one stands strong and doesn't get back into the middle of a conflict and crisis, what'll happen, this one will either divorce this one and go off and find someone else to do their sickness with, or they'll get healthy themselves. And like I said, that's what my husband and I did. And so we became healthy individuals. And the relationship is a third entity. Once we were healthy, then we can begin to take a step into our relationship and begin to work on it. And so the next stage, the fourth stage, is the hard work stage. And this is what keeps couples from, people can be together, married for 50 years and have a miserable relationship. It takes hard work to put the coupleship together. And so what happens is, for us personally, this was during the time that we realized, or I realized, our relationship was not working. We were pretty healthy individually, but we were pretty much going our separate ways. Me and my recovery and my work, my husband and his. And I wanted more than that. And we'd been married quite a while by this time. And we had done some marriage counseling. And, you know, I was what we call a love addict. And a love addict lives in fantasy. They fantasize about how the relationship could be. And so I would fantasize about what my husband would do, that he was going to be so romantic. And then, you know, I'd make it all up in my head, and then he wouldn't follow through, and he wouldn't even know what the script was. He didn't know that I had made that up, and then I would get disappointed, and then I'd be mad at him. For instance, one day I had, and this was in recovery, I had come home from work, and I noticed that I stopped at the grocery store first and got some groceries, and when I drove up the driveway, I noticed my husband had already gotten home. And I made up in my mind, I thought, oh, I'm going to go in and I'll take the groceries. He'll notice that I'm home, and he will come help me bring in the groceries, and we'll chat about our days and how our day went. And then we'll cook dinner together, and it'd just be a wonderful evening. And I had made all of that up in my head. Well, when I came in, my husband was sitting in his easy chair reading the newspaper. And I spoke, and he just kind of looked over his paper and kind of grunted. Well, I got instantly mad. I got so mad at him because he wasn't living out of my script. So I finished bringing the groceries in. Now, did I ever ask him for help? No, because he needed to know. He needed to read my mind. And by the way, my husband would say, and this sounds so gross, but I'm going to say it. He'd say, you know, I can't look at your ass and read your mind. You need to talk to me about things. But I didn't. I wanted it to be him to be spontaneous and just know what I needed, and it be the romance. And so I got angry, and I started slamming cabinet doors and throwing, you know, those sacks of groceries around. And I'd look over there at my husband, and he'd just bury himself in the newspaper. Now, I had been in recovery for a long time, and I did not feel good about myself acting like that. So we lived in a new house on a country club estate, and I put on my tennis shoes, and I went outside, and I started walking around that golf course, stomping around it. And then I started praying, because I really do believe in God, and I believe God is who can and will put relationships together if we'll let him. So I was stomping around out there, and then I just prayed a prayer, God, help me. What do I need to do? And then I remembered something that I had noticed with my husband a couple of years before, when his sister had passed away, and at her graveside, at the cemetery after she was buried, I'd gone onto the car, and my husband was standing talking with his mother. And where my mother-in-law, how she showed love was by cooking for people. She'd cook and feed people. But what I noticed is that she was hugging my husband, and when he got in the car, he was crying, and I had not seen him cry many times. And I asked him what was wrong, and he said that was the first time he could remember his mother actually hugging him, and that she actually said the words, I love you. And that was the first time he could remember hearing his mother say, I love you. Well, it clicked with me out there on that golf course that that man did not know how to say or show, how to say the words, I love you, or to show love. The only way he knew to show love is through sex. And, women need romance, where men, they're at the top of their list is sex. The top of the women's list is affection. That usually leads to sex, but they need to have a conversation about each one's wants and needs. So I went back in the house and I made a decision to do something different. And it was not easy to do this because I had to set my pride to the side and have a little bit of humility and realize that I was wrong. So I went over to my husband, and he had once again stuck that newspaper up in his face, and I just wanted to slap him, but I didn't. I took the newspaper out of his hand, and I crawled up in his lap. He had this big old overstuffed recliner. And I crawled up in his lap, and I said, okay, and I put one hand here and one hand here, and his eyes, he just looked, was big, he was scared to death, he didn't know what was happening. And I said, I just want you to hold me and rock me. And I said, I'm going to teach you what affection is and what I need in way of affection that will not lead to sex. And he agreed, and he became a willing student. And we had a lot of fun with it, and I would teach him about holding my hand out in public and holding my hand and just little things. And Kenny Rogers had a song years ago, and part of the lyrics that the woman is, the scenario is the husband was a songwriter, and he was in the music business and was gone all day and late into most evenings. And so his wife would have gone to bed, and this was the lyrics that the wife would sing, or the female artist. And what those lyrics were is, buy me a rose, call me from work, open a door for me, what would that hurt? It's the little things that make a difference. It's the little things that show the love. Buy me a rose, call me from work, open the door for me, what would that hurt? And that's what most women need, is those little things. And most of the time, women like sex just about as much as men, and it will, it can and will lead to sex, and that is the ultimate of showing love. And that's what God gave, He really gave us sex so we could outnumber the animals, so we could, have children. And He knew to make it pleasurable because, we're lazy type of people. And He knew if He didn't make it pleasurable, we'd never get around to having sex. We'd never have babies. So He made sex a pleasurable act. So here I was teaching my husband how to show affection. And so we were going along, and we did really good for a while, but there still kept feeling like something was missing in this hard work stage. And we had gone to counselors. There's lots of different kinds of counselors and relationship. There's talk therapy, there's different things. And they would work for a short while, but they never really helped that much. Most of our work, we worked it out within the coupleship ourselves. Until I was getting ready to go do some training for coupleship training to work with couples. And the woman that was leading the workshop said we could bring our spouses if we were, we were at a coupleship. So I invited my husband to go with me, and he said, of course. By that time, he'd have done anything, because we were not only good friends and buddies, but we were really becoming sweethearts again, and just really were having a pretty good time in our relationship. So he agreed to go with me. And so when we got there, the type of coupleship it is the best therapy, marriage therapy that there is. And it's called imago therapy, and it comes from the book, Getting the Love You Want, from Dr. Harville Hendricks. So I did the training, and I started having these coupleship workshops at Shades about 3 times a year, and I haven't had one for a couple of years, but I'm getting ready to put them back on the calendar. I want to have a couple a year. And I will tell you, if you've never done imago therapy for your relationship, your marriage, I would recommend it for people who are engaged, people who are about to get a divorce, a couple that they're kind of stagnant in their relationship, because what this type of therapy will teach you is whether you need to be in that relationship if you're willing to do the hard work. So we went, and like I said, I was going for training, and what happened is, and I won't go into it, but it's made the world of difference in our coupleship, the techniques that are used in there. And what happened is our marriage took on a whole different look, a whole different face. And we were both willing to do the hard work. And what happens then, through that hard work stage, and you get to a place of commitment with each other, it goes to the next stage, and that is the second honeymoon phase. And this is where your intimacy takes on a new level. And actually, intimacy is from the neck up, not the neck down. Intimacy is into me, I see. When you have intimacy with each other, you can visit, you can talk, you don't have to fantasize, you don't have to tell your partner what you made up. You can speak your truth with each other. There's good boundaries set. You both have healthy self-esteem, and you can be like two adults. And that's what it takes, is two adults standing tall, autonomous, strong, with the God of their understanding. When we can live alone and take care of ourselves, when we can stand alone, we're ready to stand in a relationship. And that's how we got through this coupleship. We could, come together, but then we could go out and have separate lives and come back together and have that interdependency. And we, even on our 30th wedding anniversary, we had a wedding. We renewed our marriage vows, and it was deeper felt and deeper cemented our marriage than the first one did, because what was missing the first time is recovery and maturity, and we had both matured together. And so once you do that, that's first 5 steps. Then the 6th step is what we move into, what we call the mutual respect. You respect each other and you love them, even in older age. My husband passed away 6 years ago with Alzheimer's. And our love grew. Even there'd be days that he wouldn't know my name. He'd say, "Now, which one of the girls are you?" But every once in a while, he would remember. When he passed away, what he left me with is I absolutely knew that I was loved and adored. And I had never gotten that from my own parents. I never knew that I was accepted for who I was, that I was loved, and that I was adored. And my husband gave me that, and I gave that to my husband. And it was all through this book, and I would support you in not trying to do it alone. It really gives you the process in here, but it's very hard to follow. You really need someone to lead you through this, and it's called imago therapy. And to give you a little hint, I'm going to leave you with this thought. We usually marry one parent and we become the other one. We pick out, and we don't even know that we're doing it at the time, we're picking out certain characteristics of a parent that we swear we never want to be like. And then this is all on a subconscious level. We go and pick out people, choose people to be in relationships with that have those same characteristics. And our partner does the same thing. And the purpose of it is to complete our childhood. Particularly if you grow up in any form of dysfunction, we keep trying to complete our childhood and have a happy childhood. And I will give you a hint: if you didn't have a happy childhood, you can't go back and have one, but you can have a wonderful adult life. If you have any, in your adult life, you can be childlike at times and play. That's part of imago therapy, is to teach people how to play together and have fun together. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be you're not going to be childish. Childish is self-centeredness. It's stomping your foot and demanding your way like a brat. childlike is having that creative part, that spontaneity, that just fun. And that's what you have to look forward to after the coupleship workshop called Imago. And we're going to be putting 2 or 3 weekends on our calendar for the coming year. If you're interested, just call the office. It's 325-572-HOPE. And call us. And if you have any interest in having maybe some personal help, if you need a personal assessment, we give them free, and we have intensives. We do individual work. I have a private phone practice. I have 1 or 2 vacancies, but anyway, there's help available for each of you individual. But today I'm talking mainly about the coupleship. So if you have any interest, wanting more information, just give us a call. And love is the answer. It is the most powerful force on the face of the earth. But we have to learn to love ourselves first before we can love another person. Thank you.